As Hashem, today's daf, last daf in Masechet Avodah Zarah, daf Ayin Vav, number 76. And we're going to begin on daf Ayin Hey Amid Beis, about like 8 lines from the bottom. And the Gemara begins, Tana Rabbanim. Here we go. The Gemara begins, Tana Rabbanim. We're talking about kashering kalim. You're all familiar with, you take, if you have a spoon that you want to kasher, you cook up water and you put the spoon in. Or like they have in Far Rockaway when before Pesach, they cook up a big pot of water and you drop in your small pots. So that's what basically we're talking about over here. But other type of kalim need a more severe type of intense type of kashering. So the Mishnah, first of all, the Brisa says, if a person buys a utensil from a goy, if it's a brand new utensil, he never used it, so matbilin, all you do is dip it into mikvah, the hein tahirim, and it's kosher. Tahar doesn't mean tahar, but it means kosher. Because as you know, when you buy a brand new keli from a guy, you have to put it into the mikvah. Hi, Lewis, we just began. Ein Hayam Beis. So the Gemara says, what happens if you buy from a guy, let's say food utensils that you only used it with cold items. Kagoin, if you buy from him koisis, a cup, vikitainis and jugs, utzloichios and flasks. So it's used to store liquids. So all you do it, if you want to kasher it, madichan, you rinse it in the dishwasher, matbilin, and you put it into the mikvah, the heim ta'irim, and then you can use it. Let's say if it's something that the goy used with hot food, kegoin hayaris, a pot, hakum kam musin is a kettle, umechamechamim and umechamechamim is like a samovar. So then it needs an intense type of more intense type of kashering. Magi ilan, you have to purge it. You purge it by taking the small pot and putting it into hot water. Okay, so like into a big pot. And then first you do that. Once you kasher it, then matbilam, then you stick it into the mikvah, the hein and then you can use it. Says the Gemara, dvarm shenishtamshu behem or. Let's say it's a type of food item, food utensil that was used directly over the fire. Kegoin, for example, hashpudim, a spit, v'ha'askalois, and is a grate. So I showed you the picture yesterday, but here it is again on the screen. So this grate over here and this spit over here. So in order to kasher it, since it's directly over the fire, you take a blowtorch and you light it up so that the metal turns white. That's what it means. Melabnan, you have to heat it up so hot that it becomes white. And matbilim, then you put it into the mikvah, the hein taharin, and then you can use it. Let's say you use the food, but you didn't kasher it. You used the food utensil, but you didn't kasher it yet. So Tanachad, the one brisa says aser, the food is aser. Tanya idach, and another brisa says it's mutter, the food is permitted. So how do you resolve that? One brisa says you could use the food, and one brisa says you can't use the food. Like kash, it's not a difficulty. Most food utensils that you're going to buy, in fact, all of them that you're going to buy from a guy, he did not use it in the past 24 hours. So therefore, when it gives a taste, when you cook with it, kosher food, it will give off a taste that's in the walls of that utensil. It will give off a taste into your kosher food that's detrimental to your kosher food. So does that aser your kosher food? So ha commander Omar Noisin Talif Gam aser. The first brisa that says you can't eat the food because even though the utensil gives a detrimental taste into the food, nevertheless the kosher food is aser. The brisa that says it's permitted to eat that food is commander Omar Noisin Talif Gam. If the vessel gives off, the utensil gives off a detriment taste into the kosher food remains kosher. So mutter, then you're allowed to eat it. Says the Gemara, so then why do I ever have to kasher, according to the opinion, that after 24 hours, a guy cooked with a pot, and then after 24 hours, you say that whatever was absorbed in the walls, which is called blios, um, if it goes into kosher food, it will give a taste that's detriment. So geuli goyim do as rachmona heichem mishkachas law. In what scenario would the Torah require you to do koshering of the kalim? Why would I need it? Because just wait 24 hours and then you could use it. Amar Rav Chia b'rei Rav Huna le'asr Torah. That's exactly right. The Torah didn't say that you need hechsher kalim. Ella kedera. We go to Amid Vav Amid Aleph. Ella kedera bas yoimei. Only if you want to use it, if the guy cooked with it that day, and then a Jew wants to use it, yes, then you have to kasher it. The lav noisen tam of gamhu, because at that point it's not going to give off a taste a detriment taste, since the guy just cooked with it 2 hours before you bought it. Says the Gemara. Okay, mikam ve'elech lishteri. Then let's make a rule that if you buy a vessel from a guy after 24 hours, you don't need hechsher kalim. And says the Gemara, gzera kedera she'ena bas yoimai mishum kedera bas yoimai, because the Chachamim said that I'm afraid that if I allowed you to cook in a pot that's not 24 hours old, that you bought from a guy, you might use a pot that's less than 24 hours from the last use of the guy, if you bought it within 24 hours that the guy used it. Again, we're dealing with a society that, you just can't go and order a pot on Amazon. It was like you actually bought pots of goyim. So therefore, the Chachamim said that no matter when you buy a pot from a goy, even if he used it last week, you still have to be machsher it. You still have to have machsher the pot, the idach. But according to the opinion that it says that the food that you cook in that pot is mutar, so then, why would it be mutar even if you use a pot that was 1 day old? I mean, why would the food be mutar if you use the pot? He holds that the food inside a non-kosher pot, even if the guy just cooked with it that day, will also make the food a detriment. So whereas the pot itself that the guy used is non-kosher, at least for the first 24 hours. But even if you would cook with it within that 24 hours, according to this opinion, even if it's it's within the 24 hours, it still would give off a detrimental taste into the food. That's why the food is always going to be permitted. But the pot, you're still going to have to do some sort of hechsher. Now the Gemara pivots for another discussion. We just said, here's the picture, that in order to kasher the grate of a barbecue and a spit, so you have to do libun. Libun means you have to blowtorch it until it turns white. You can't just stick it into a hot water pot. So the Gemara says, Rami le Rab Amram le Rav Sheshes. Rav Amram asked a contradiction to Rav Sheshes. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Hashpudim ba'askala, the spit and the grate, belabnim ba'or. In order to make it kosher from a guy, you have to do libun, right? You have to blowtorch it. But Tnanya, b'gabi kachim, didn't we learn by kachim? Now kachim, if something is cooked with kachim, so then there's another problem. Although the food, the kachim food going into the spit and the grate are kosher, but once they're left into the walls of the grate, into the grate itself, it becomes noiser. It becomes noiser, which is kachim food that the time expired. So in order for you to reuse a kachim utensil, you have to kasher it. So the Brisa says if you want to kasher a kachim hashpud va'askala, the spit and the grate of kachim, so since it's used daily, mag'ilim b'chamin, all you have to do is stick it into a pot of hot water and it's kosher. So the question is, why by kachim do we go lenient and say all you need is hagala when it comes to regular kosher, making it kosher from a goy, you need what's called libun. Make it super hot with a blowtorch. And says the Gemara, and they both have isser in it. The kachim has the isser of noiser in it. The by the goy, it has the isser of trephus in the spit and the grate. Amalei Rav Amram Bri. So Rav Sheshes said to Rav Amram, Amram, my son, like, Ma inyan kachem eitzigule goyim. How could you compare kachem to kashering a utensil that you're buying from a guy? Hacha over here by the kachem, when you originally cooked it with kachem, hetera bola, it absorbed heter food. Only while it was in the walls, while it was in the grates, then it became nicer. Hassam over there by the trephus of the goy that he cooked with it right away when it entered into the grate, isurabala, it swallowed something iser. So therefore, that's the difference. The difference is when you cook kachim over here, so whatever went into the grates was kosher food. Later on, the blias became nicer. So therefore, hagala is enough. But if you cook non-kosher food, but the guy using it, so right away when it went into the grates and the spit, it was trephus. And therefore, you need libun. Says the Gemara, Omar Avav, Rava says, who cares what went in there, how it went there? Soif ki kapolit. When you use it again, isura kapolit. It's expelling iser. So even though by kachim, when it first entered into the spit, it was not aser, but nevertheless, it became aser noiser while it was overnighting in the spit itself, the blios. And therefore, whatever it absorbed, when it expels it again by the next cooking, it would be iser. Ella Amar Rava, Rava said like this: My hagola nami shtifa umrika. Really, by Rava says, maybe this is Rabbah that says it, that really by kachim you also need libun. But the Torah added that by kachim not only do you need libun, you need to wash it from the inside and the outside. That's what he meant to say. By kachim you also need libun, like in regular trephus, but you also need to do this concept. For whatever reason, you have to wash it out after you blowtorch it. You have to just wash it with cold water on the outside and the inside. Amalei Abaya said, Midame Marika Shtifa B'tzainin Hagala B'cham. The word Marika Mishtifa, washing it outside, is rinsing it, is with cold water. But the Brisa says that in order to kasher a spit of kachim, you have to use Hagala, which is hot water. So Ella Omar Abaya said, Yagid Olav Reyai. In other words, both are incomplete. Kachim is incomplete, and by hechsher goyim, it's also incomplete. So Tanahacha over here, libin v'huadin hagala, Tanan hasim hagala v'huadin libin. Abaya comes up with this tremendous chumrah that in order to kasher a spit and a grate, you need libun plus throwing it into a pot of hot water. And the same thing by kachim. Each one just mentioned one step, but you really need two steps by both. Amalei Rava, Rava says that's not a good teretz. You don't list one step by one and another step by the other. You just list two steps by one and then one step by another. And then I know whatever's missing, you add it to the other thing that was to the subject that it was missing. In other words, Rava doesn't like that to machsher something, you need two steps. It wouldn't make sense that by kachim, the Torah, the Bryce is just telling you need hagala, but you also need libun. And by geulei goyim, when you buy it off a guy, you need libun plus hagala. That makes no sense. Either the Bryce would be more clearly, it's telling you halachas. Ella Omar Rava said, Rava is going to say a review. Now let's review. We have a question. The question is a simple question. Our Mishnah says that in order to kasher a spit, you need libun, using the blowtorch. And the Mishnah in Kachim says that in order to kasher a spit, all you need is to throw it into a pot of hot water. So how do you resolve that? Why is there a difference? So the answer Rava is going to give is that by Kachim it never became aser, because you're constantly reusing it every day. Kachim was part of the Beis HaMikdash and it was used every day, so it never had a chance to become aser. Kachim hainu taimek the Rav Nachman Amar Abba Bavul. The Amar kol yom v'yom, every day you're using it, nasa gi'ula lechavera, it becomes kosher right away. It never became nosa. Tainach, says the Gemara Shlamim. If you use the spit to make carbon shlamim, I could understand it never became noisa. If you use it once a day, a carbon shlamim doesn't become noisa until the third day. So, but for 2 days it's not noisa. Mikamid have a noisa kahavagil because you reuse the spit again before it ever became noisa. Alachatas, chatas, a carbon chatas. If this spit was used for a carbon chatas, then let's say you use it on Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, it was nicer inside. So how can you say it's not nicer? The first day that you use it, it becomes nicer. By the next day it becomes nicer. When you're reusing it after it becomes nicer, it's going to expel the noisa that's inside of it into the new kachim that you're going to be cooking. And says the Gemara, Amrei loitzricha the chimivashel chatas ha'inda. When you use it for carbon chasas, Rava says then right away you use it for carbon shlamim. You don't stop using it. You use it for chatas, then you use it for shlamim. Once you used it for shlamim, it expelled the chatas. So the chatas l'mocha shlamim the esma b'hada adoli kashal zimnayu. And therefore, the chatas of tomorrow and the shlamim of the yesterday means if you used it for Tuesday, today, if you use it on Tuesday for a chatas, then use it for shlamim. The next day you use it for a chatas. On Wednesday you use it for a chatas. Then on Thursday, when you use it for shlamim, already there was no more noiser in there because the shlamim schlepped out the noiser, the lamacha. So that basically, what Rava is basically saying, it never becomes usher. That's why there's no problem with kachim. Kachim never became noiser, so therefore the grate and the spit are not usher. So the Gemara says, then the whole thing makes no sense. Then why do you have to be machshir it? You shouldn't need any hagala. Kasha, that's a very good question, and it's unresolved. Rapapa says like this: I'll resolve you the contradiction. Why by kachim you can do hagala, and why by goyish treifa food you have to use libum? High korid, because by treifa food the whatever it was absorbed got a chance to be hard, and in order for it to be destroyed, you have to do blowtorch. High loikarid, but by the ones that were used for the base of English, it was used daily, so it didn't have a time to really, become part of the spit and the grate itself. So it's easily drawn out just by using it, by dropping in and doing it hagala to it, by dropping it into a pot of hot water. And then the Gemara says, Rav Ashi Amar la'olam kida amra me'ikara. Like we said before, the reason why kachim needs just hagala is because it absorbed only heter. Later on, it became iser. Hacha by treifis of the goy isurable. The great swallowed treif. Your question is to be eating the kapalit isura kapalit. Your question is, so what? When it expels, even by kachim, it's expelling noisar. The answer is, be eating the kapalit like easily isur. It was not noiser when the iser is not here when it's expelling. So therefore, you can go kuladik. So what he's basically saying is, when it's expelled, although it is noiser now, but when it went in, it was kosher food. It was heter. It was kachim that went in. So therefore, when it expels, since the iser is not here, it's just an invisible taste. So therefore, Chachamim said by kachim you could use hagala. By goyim you have to do liban. So again, review. If this was kachim, if you want to make it kosher, throw it into a pot of hot water. If it was made for you bought it off a guy, then you have to take a blowtorch and make it turn very hot white. So the Gemara says, "Ba'at kama malabna." New Gemara. How hot do you have to blow it with a blowtorch to make it hot, to make it white? Amar Rav Mani said, "Achetashe kliposam." till a thin shell comes off of it. I guess it means until it sparks up, till you see it's white. The Ketzad, now the Gemara asks a question. How do we do Hagala? I'm telling you that you throw it into a pot of hot water, but that's a problem because true, you could throw small pots into the hot water. What about a big pot? So the Ketzad Magilan, how do you do Hagala? You put small pots into a big pot. Now, you don't have to make it hechsher the outside of the pot because the outside of the pot it's only the inside of the pot is kosher. The problem is the rim. The rim of the pot absorbed some trephis. So when you put the whole pot into the water, so then you kasher the whole pot. But the question is, what happens? How do you do haga'ala on a big pot? Tashma, come in here. Who do the have a bay Rabbi Kavya? Rabbi Kavya bought a big pot from a goy. So he had a trick. Ahadele, we go to Amid Beis, Gadafna Delisha Apumei, Umalia Maya Arteche. You can take a look at my picture. Basically, he took this big pot and he surrounded it with a dough. So therefore, he could fill it up with more hot water, and some of the hot steam is going to go to the rim. On the rim, he's going to, as you can see, he's going to have the hot steam on the rim. The hot steam on the rim is going to bring out whatever the rim absorbed, and that's the point. So that was his trick, and to do hagala on a big pot. Amar Rava said, "Man chakem lemevik milsa." Who was so smart to do something like that? Ilav Rabbi Kavya de Gava Rabbahu. Rabbi Kavya was a very intelligent person. Kisavar, he held kiboiloi, the way it absorbed kach poltoi, so that's the way it expels. Ma boiloi, just by the rim, it absorbs benitzoitzis with like little sprays and spills that go onto the rim. Poltoi, so when it expels benitzoitzis with the sprays and sprays that it will go onto the rim. So again, because this heats up and it heats up the rim, whatever trephis was in the rim will be expelled. And that's why he put this dough around it so he could fill it up even higher than normal. Then we learned in the Mishnah Hasakin, if you buy a knife from a guy that he used, let's say, to cut, cold cuts with, so then, safa, you have to polish it, and then you could use it. Amar Rabbi Ukva Bar Chama said, but after polishing it, so you take off the fat, you should stick it 10 times into the soil. Amar Avhuna Yeshua, Avhuna said, Ubakarka Shenavuda. It's soil that was never, it's like hard earth, not soft earth. So that this hard earth will just pull away any extra fat that's on this cold knife. Amar Rav Kahana Uvasakin Yafa, but if we're talking about a smooth knife, Shein Bagumas, that has no grooves in it, because if it has grooves, it's very hard to kosher it because under the groove there could be some non-kosher fat. Tanya Mehachi, Sakin Yafa Shein Baguma is only a beautiful knife, that a smooth knife that has no grooves. You just stick it into the earth for 10 times and then you could use it. Obviously, if it was used to cut hot meat, you have to, kosher it. But you kosher it by hagala. But we're talking about a cold knife. A cold knife, you kosher it with by polishing it, rubbing it down and sticking into earth for 10 times. We're dealing here to eat cold meat or use it for cold, then that's the way to kosher a knife. Says the Gemara, a beautiful thing, and this ends off our Masechta. Kihad Mar Yehuda, there was this Mar Yehuda, who was a great tzaddik and a Moira. His name was Yehuda, Ubati Bartuvi. And Bati Bartuvi was like a non-frum Jew. He was even a slave that wasn't free. Havayasvit Kamei, they were important people. They were sitting, the Shvar Malka, in the Persian king. The Persian king invited these two Jews, one representing the Orthodox and one representing the non-Orthodox. I said the Kamei Esrog. So they bought before the Persian king an esrog. So he used a fruit knife, psak, he cut the esrog, va'achal, and ate from the esrog. Psak, then he cut another piece. Now it's the fruit knife, and it's non-kosher knife. V'havle lebati batuve, and he gave it to Bati Batuve, gave him a piece of the esrog. Then he understood that Mar Yehuda, who's Orthodox, is not going to eat if he uses his knife to cut the esrog, so the king, out of respect, he stuck the knife 10 times in the ground, so he made the knife kosher. Pasak, he cut the esrog, Havle Lamar Yehuda, he gave it to Mar Yehuda. So he kashered the knife before cutting the fruit, the esrog, to give to Mar Yehuda, but he did not do so for Bati Batuvi. So guess what? Amalei Bati Batuvi, so Bati Batuvi told the king, Vahu Gavra Labar Yisrael, this man, referring to himself, I'm not Jewish. Why did you kasher it when you gave it to Mar Yehuda and did not kasher the knife when you gave me a piece of esrog? Amalei, so the king answered, Mar Kim Le Begave. Him, I'm confident that he keeps all the mitzvahs, and therefore I kasher the knife. Omar, but you, like Kim Le Begave. I'm not sure if you keep all the mitzvahs, and therefore I wasn't concerned that you're going to eat from my knife, my cutting. And here the Gemara says, ends off with a fascinating thing. Others say, Amalei, do you remember what happened last night? Because when they were guests in the White House, they were Bati Batuvi and Mar Yehuda were guests in the king's house. He sent a woman to be with them for the night. So Bati Batuvi accepted it, and Mar Yehuda did not accept the woman, of course. So that's why the king said, I understand, since you don't care about znus, so you probably don't care about eating kosher either. But Mar Yehuda, I know, didn't accept the woman, and therefore I kashered the knife before I would give him part of my esrog. Fascinating story. Hadin alech hasoiches hapoyel uslicha la mesechta avodah zarah. Hadin alech hasoiches hapoyel uslicha la mesechta avodah zarah. Okay.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, everybody. Okay.
Mazel tov.
You start a new one tomorrow, Be'ezus Hashem.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
Oh, okay. I might be there tomorrow. I'm not sure. But either way, I'll make a recording or something. Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for
everything.
everything.
Sure.